It's not every day that a movie about metal music comes out, so when I saw the title Metal Lords on Netflix, I was like, why not? With honestly not expecting much. But the movie turned out to be better than I expected it to be. The description of the film is: for teenage misfits Hunter and Kevin, the path to glory is clear. Devote themselves to metal, win battle of the bands, and be worshipped like gods. It's a comedy about teenagers who are going through everything that most teenagers go through, but it's told through a lens of a metal music fan. Apart from this film being littered with a lot of metal classics and metal references, the film manages to address mental health problems, relationships between teenagers, and relationships with their parents. So on the surface, it's not too different from what, let's say, John Hughes did in the 90s and 80s with films like The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, with the exception of the metal angle, of course. And I guess this film is a little less goofy than John Hughes classics. Taking into consideration that all the retro aesthetic of the 80s and 90s is very much in trend right now, I was worried that this film would be based in the 80s or something, but to my surprise, it's not. Instead, it's based in modern day, which surprisingly feels like a breath of fresh air, since nostalgia bait is so prevalent in modern film. But still, the majority of the music that is used in this film is very much old school, so it still sort of leans on the nostalgia aspect for those who are metal music fans. The film revolves around our three heroes. Hunter, the biggest metal fan I've seen in a while, both on and off screen. He plays guitar. Kevin, who is very much inspired by Hunter to become a good metal drummer in their post-death metal band named Skullflower. And their bassist, or should I say cellist, Emily, who really joins the band towards the end of the film. In fact, during most of the film, the band is looking for a bassist, which hits close to home for me, as I have had experience with quite a few bands over the years, and I can tell you, in most bands, we did not have a permanent bass player. It's not even funny. Another thing that reminds me of my early days as a musician is that what our protagonists really have at the beginning of it all is just unbridled enthusiasm. There is no real skill. It's not quite obvious if they are truly talented musicians, because most of what we hear them play during the film are cover songs. And that's exactly how it was for me with my first band. We did not know how to write or what to write. I didn't even play an instrument, so I was trying to be a singer. I mean, it was ridiculous. But this is how metal bands started back in the day. It was very rare for someone to come from a music school and start a metal band.
Hey,
Hi.
Usually everyone was self-taught. And this is how I can tell that this movie was made by people who actually care about music and most likely lived it as well. Well, seeing as how Tom Morello is the executive producer on this film, it kinda makes sense. There was one thing I was worried about when it came to the bands that would be mentioned and referenced in this movie. I was worried that they would only mention the, basic 5 most famous metal bands like Metallica, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Slayer, and so on. You know what I mean. But I was pleasantly surprised to also hear names like Meshuggah, Slipknot, Lamb of God, Mastodon, and even freaking Tool. Also, Rage Against the Machine? How are they metal? But I guess it's obviously because Morello was involved into this project, so they just had to stick their name into this. But we all know what's up. Rage Against the Machine have little to do with metal. Regardless, I'm glad to hear the names of bands that are not like over 40 years old. Bands that I grew up on are finally being acknowledged in the fabric of a different medium such as film. It's a nice first step. And a few songs by more contemporary bands actually made it to the film. In case you are curious about the music that was played in the film, I will leave song names and links in the description, so you could check them out if you want. While on the topic of music being played in this film, I'm sure many of you are wondering if actors actually played their instruments. The answer, unfortunately, is no. In fact, the only person who had any prior experience with playing an instrument is Adrian Greensmith, who portrayed the character of Hunter. But the director and producers made sure that all the actors, at the very least, looked like they were playing their respective instruments in a believable manner. So so some practice and understanding of their instruments was a must. And I gotta say, the actors did a pretty good job. Now, apart from the music aspect of the film, topics such as bullying and mental health were addressed quite a bit. Without going into too much detail, our heroes learn how to stand up for themselves, learn the value of friendship, and learn how to deal with their own demons. So, all our protagonists have a nice character arc. Hunter, despite being one of the main characters, was pretty much an asshole to everyone throughout the film. His problems seem to come from the dysfunctional relationship with his father, who seems very much indifferent towards his son. But by the end of the film, Hunter becomes a much more tolerable and understanding person. Kevin, at the beginning, was this kid who was unsure of what he wanted to do in his life and began playing drums in Skullflower only because Hunter was his best friend. But Kevin did not have any real interest in metal. But by the end, he finds true passion for metal and playing drums. Some of the best scenes in the film are those montages of him really learning how to play and enjoy the process. You can see him go through a transformation not only as a musician, but as a person as well. Emily, very much like Kevin, was not into metal but was already an adequate cellist. But after hearing Kevin practice, she gained interest in the genre. Emily and Kevin are feeling the romance aspect of the film as well. There's gotta be romance in a teenage flick, right? They have an interesting, sweet and innocent relationship where they support and complement each other. It works out for them. I think Emily plays an important role in exploring the mental health issues. She has a sort of anger management problem similar to shitty attitude of Hunter, but to a different extent and for a very different reason.
Was bound to rise up and crush whatever stood in its path! You're fucking great! I will fucking kill you!
While Hunter's issues and rebelling come from his family dynamic, Emily is loved by her parents and everyone seems to be sympathetic and understanding of her issues. Regardless, she is still unhappy as she cannot control her outbursts of anger without the prescription drugs. This way, the film sort of addresses two different sides of mental problems. Some of them come from the bad environment and experiences, while others are just something that some people are born with. But in both cases, support and understanding are crucial, which Kevin brings to the table. I think in its core, this is one of the main messages of the film. Also, there is this cameo of our metal legends where they teach Kevin about true love. It's fun and kind of unexpected, to be honest, and it's played off as Kevin's drunken hallucination, so it's kind of fun and doesn't feel too forced. At the end of the day, this is a comedy which has a bunch of cool and genuinely funny moments. I really like the type of humor they went for in this film. It's not too out there and feels relatively grounded and believable. The culmination of the film ends with our protagonists playing an original song at the Battle of the Bands titled Machinery of Torment, which was written by Tom Morello. It's actually a cool track and the performance of it is shot very well. Did Skullflower? Yeah, they had to change their name towards the end because Skullflower was not appropriate for the competition. So did Skullflower win the Battle of the Bands? Well, you're gonna have to watch the film to find out, or if you've seen it already, you know what's up. Overall, I think it's a cool film. Cinematography is great, acting is awesome, it's well written too. I don't know what the demographic for this film is though. I don't know if it's targeted at teens really, because of how old school the majority of music in the film really is. I don't think that the majority of Gen Z is running around looking for inspiration to start a metal band. But I know this is a fun watch for people of my age group for sure. But hopefully teenagers will love it too. I'd give this film an 8, I guess. It's like between 7 and an 8. It's hard to rate this because there's not that many adequate films filmed in this niche. I'd actually like to see a sequel for this one. There's definitely more to tell about these characters and how their music career may develop. So if you haven't seen it, check it out so that a sequel would be possible. That will be it for today. Thanks for your time. Please drop a like if you enjoyed the video, leave your thoughts about the film in the comment section, and subscribe if this type of content is your cup of tea. I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.